In a galaxy where every species boasted impressive abilities and ancient technologies, Earth and its human inhabitants were often looked down upon. At the Galactic Academy, where the brightest minds from every corner of the universe gathered to learn and advance, humanity's entry was considered little more than a curiosity. But there was one human student who had managed to slip past the Academy's radar: Maximilian Drake, a student who, to his classmates, seemed to embody every stereotype about humanity: small, weak, and nothing special. Max, as he preferred to be called, had always struggled above his alien peers. From the 7-foot-tall Gorthians to the mind-bendingly intelligent Litherans, excelled in combat training, theory, and technology, Max was the worst. His grades were the lowest, and he had yet to master even the simplest of tasks. Much to the amusement of his fellow students, they mocked him openly, but Max didn't care. He had learned early on that no one took humans seriously, and he was okay with that. He'd never been the brightest or the strongest, but Max knew something that no one else did. He had a secret. Max sat alone in the Academy's training hall one evening, staring at the holographic display of his failing grades. His classmates had once again mocked him. This time, after a disastrous combat simulation, he was the laughingstock of the entire Academy. The Gorthian combatant, Scar, had crushed him easily, leaving him lying in the simulated dirt. Max was used to it, but it still hurt. He sighed deeply, his fingers brushing the control panel in front of him. Why'd even try? He muttered to himself, frustration settling in. But then an eerie silence fell over the room, a sudden chill in the air. Max looked up, his heart pounding as the holographic display flickered. Something was happening. His fingers hovered over the controls, then slammed down with determination. "Enough," he whispered. Without warning, the room erupted in a blinding flash of light. Max's body pulsed with energy as the energy reserves within him, dormant for years, flared to life. His small, seemingly weak frame crackled with raw power. The display around him began to warp, as if the very fabric of reality was bending to his will. His eyes burned with an intensity no one had seen before. Max's classmates had been watching from the control room. They had all been observing his lack of skill, waiting for the human to fail once again. But now they were watching in stunned silence as the human student began to transform before their eyes. Scar, the Gorthian who had once laughed at Max, stood frozen, his 6 arms raised in an awkward defensive posture. He had no idea what was happening. Max took a slow, deliberate step forward. The entire training hall trembled beneath his feet as the human's power began to ripple outward. His classmates, still watching from behind the glass, could feel the air pressure shift. The Gorthians, Litherans, and even the once invincible Shavor were instinctively backing away from the source of the power they didn't understand. Maximilian Drake came the voice of Professor Zarvos, the Academy's headmaster, who entered the training hall with a curious mixture of alarm and awe. "What are you doing?" Max didn't respond immediately. His focus was entirely on the energy coursing through him. He had known that one day the truth would come out, but he had hoped it wouldn't be like this. The training hall, the entire building, the Academy itself, was now filled with the sheer force of his will. His power resonated with the ancient energy that flowed through humanity, an energy the galaxy had long forgotten. Max's voice, calm and steady, finally broke the silence. "You think we're weak, you think we're inferior, but you're wrong. We aren't just good at surviving, we're good at adapting. That's what makes us dangerous." Professor Zarvos stepped forward, but he quickly hesitated, sensing the enormity of the human's newfound power. But how? How is this possible? No human has ever. "That's the thing," Max interrupted, his voice now carrying a weight that made even the seasoned aliens around him pause. "Humans don't show their true power right away. We hide it. We learn. And when we're ready, we act. And when we do, the galaxy will never forget us." Max raised his hand, and the ground beneath them trembled as the building itself seemed to obey his command. The shimmering force field surrounding the Academy flickered and then collapsed. His classmates, no longer sure whether to stand their ground or flee, watched as Max moved toward them. With each step, the walls shook, the air hummed with raw, untamed power. Scar, who had once been so confident in his superior strength, now knelt before Max, overwhelmed by the human's sheer presence. He had never known fear like this before. What are you? Max smirked. We're humanity, and we'd just begun. The energy coursing through Max didn't just affect the building. It reached out to the very fabric of space itself. Time seemed to slow. Reality seemed to bend. His classmates, from the most advanced species to the most primitive, realized in that moment that humanity was not what they had once believed. Max was no longer the weak student. He was the harbinger of an entirely new power, a power they could no longer ignore. Max's transformation was complete. The human student, once the laughingstock of the academy, had become something greater, something that no alien species could ever fathom. He wasn't just a student, he was a force of nature, an unstoppable force in the galaxy. Professor Zarvos, staring in stunned silence, slowly knelt. We were wrong about you, Maximilian Drake. We were wrong about humanity. Max simply nodded, his eyes burning with the intensity of 1,000 stars. This is just the beginning, Max said, as his power rippled outward, and the galaxy will know our name.